There is a fascinating thing that happens when we walk into a room. We are biologically wired to scan our environment, to look for threats, but more importantly, to look for safety, for belonging, for connection. And for generations, we have been sold a very specific, narrow definition of what makes a woman captivating. We look at the surface, we look at aesthetics, we look at the packaging. But if you pay attention, really pay attention to human behavior, you realize something profound. Physical beauty might capture our attention for the first 3 seconds, but it is entirely insufficient to keep us. Because long after the novelty of appearance fades, we are left dealing with the human being underneath. True loveliness isn't something you inherit by genetic lottery. It is a practice. It is a set of behaviors. It is an energy that completely transforms how people feel when they are around her. Here are the 7 qualities that are infinitely more powerful than looks. 1. Emotional safety. The single greatest draw of a truly lovely woman is that she creates a space where you can exhale. Think about the people in your life who make you feel like you have to perform, like you have to constantly defend your status or hide your flaws. Now, think about the opposite. A truly lovely woman possesses an innate emotional intelligence that says, you can drop your armor here. She listens not to reply, but to understand. When someone feels safe in your presence, they don't just like you, they trust you with their vulnerability. And trust is the absolute currency of any meaningful human relationship too. Unshakable self-respect. Look closely at how someone treats themselves, because how you treat yourself teaches the world how to treat you. A truly lovely woman doesn't rely on external validation or constant applause to know her worth. She carries a quiet, grounded confidence. She knows her boundaries and she honors them with grace. She doesn't need to tear others down to elevate herself, nor does she shrink to make others comfortable. That kind of deep-rooted self-respect is magnetic because it comes from a place of internal wholeness, not emptiness looking to be filled. 3. Genuine curiosity about the world. In a culture obsessed with being interesting, a lovely woman focuses on being interested. She asks real questions. She leans forward when someone else is speaking because she genuinely believes that every single person she meets knows something she doesn't. This curiosity strips away arrogance. It replaces judgment with fascination. When a woman is deeply curious, conversations stop being a contest of egos and become an exploration of shared humanity. 4. Resilience in the face of chaos. Life is messy. Things break, plans fail, and unexpected crises test our foundation. What separates a truly captivating person from everyone else is what they do when things fall apart. A lovely woman doesn't crumble into bitterness or lash out at the world when life gets hard. She bends like bamboo in a storm. She faces adversity with a resilient spirit, finding a way forward without losing her warmth. There is an inspiring, quiet strength in watching someone navigate a difficult season with grace and grit intact. 5. Radical authenticity. We live in a world saturated with filters, curated personas, and performance. We are exhausted by fake. That is why radical authenticity is so profoundly refreshing. A lovely woman doesn't pretend to be someone she isn't just to fit into a room. She owns her quirks, her passions, and even her flaws out in the open. There is no exhausting game of pretense. When you talk to her, you are talking to the real human being, and that absolute transparency gives everyone else permission to be real too. 6. Generosity of spirit. True loveliness is outwardly focused. It's about impact. A genuinely lovely woman derives joy from the success and well-being of the people around her. She doesn't keep score. She celebrates other people's victories as if they were her own. And she offers kindness not because she expects a return on investment, but simply because it is who she is. This generosity of spirit creates an upward spiral of positivity. People may forget what you said, and they may forget what you did, but they will never ever forget how you made them feel. 7. A sense of purpose. Nothing is more attractive than someone who knows why they get out of bed in the morning. A lovely woman is anchored to something bigger than herself, whether it is her craft, her family, a mission, or a deep-seated value system. That sense of purpose gives her life a steady rhythm and a clear direction. She isn't drifting. She is building. And watching someone move through life with intention and dedication inspires everyone around them to elevate their own standard of living. Keynotes of the speech. Safety over surface. Physical appearance captures initial attention, but true human connection and long-term captivation are built entirely on the ability to make others feel emotionally safe. The power of self-worth. Unshakable self-respect and clear, graceful boundaries dictate how the world treats a person, replacing external validation with internal wholeness. Curiosity replaces ego. True engagement comes from being genuinely interested in others rather than striving to be the most interesting person in the room. Grace through adversity. Resilience and the ability to navigate life's chaos without losing one's warmth demonstrate a quiet, inspiring strength. Authenticity as a magnet. Radical honesty and the rejection of social filters create an environment of trust, allowing meaningful, real relationships to thrive. There is a profound difference between being noticed and being safe. We live in a society that is endlessly preoccupied with the surface. From the moment we are young, we are conditioned to look at the packaging. We are taught to measure attraction in terms of symmetry, style, aesthetics, and the immediate visual impact someone has when they walk into a room. And because we are biologically hardwired to scan our environments for visual data, physical beauty will always capture our attention for the first 3 seconds. But human beings are far more complex than just visual creatures. We are emotional creatures. We are social creatures. And more than anything else, we are creatures deeply driven by the innate biological need for survival and security. Long after the novelty of a physical appearance fades, we are left dealing with the human being underneath. When the lights go out, when the party ends, and when real life sets in with all its messy, unpredictable complexities, a striking face or a curated aesthetic loses its power to sustain us. What sustains us, what truly draws us in and anchors us, is how a person makes us feel in our nervous system. This is where true loveliness begins, and it starts with a quality that is infinitely more powerful than any look: the ability to create emotional safety. Think about the environments you navigate every single day. Most of the modern world is designed to make us feel like we are constantly auditioning. Whether it is in our professional lives, our social circles, or even within our own families, there is a pervasive pressure to perform. We feel that we have to present a polished, invulnerable version of ourselves. We hide our insecurities, we mask our fatigue, and we carefully monitor our words because we are terrified of being judged, misunderstood, or rejected. We keep our armor tightly fastened because the world out there feels risky. Now, think about the rare individuals in your life who completely disrupt that dynamic. Think about the person who, the moment you enter their presence, makes you feel like you can finally exhale. You do not have to explain yourself. You do not have to defend your status, justify your mistakes, or pretend that you have everything figured out. In their presence, the heavy, invisible backpack you have been carrying all day just slips off your shoulders. That is the superpower of a truly lovely woman. She does not demand a performance. Instead, she offers sanctuary. Emotional safety is not a passive trait. It is an active, intentional practice of deep human attunement. It begins with the way someone listens. Most people do not listen with the intent to understand. They listen with the intent to reply. While you are speaking, they are already formulating their counter argument, waiting for their turn to take the spotlight, or judging your perspective against their own internal yardstick. But a lovely woman listens differently. When she looks at you, she gives you the rare and precious gift of her undivided attention. She leans in. Her eyes remain steady. She is not listening to fix you, to lecture you, or to score points. She is listening simply to understand what it is like to walk in your shoes, to see the world from your vantage point. When you feel truly heard by someone, something incredible happens in your brain. Your defenses drop. The cortisol levels in your bloodstream lower. You stop guarding your flanks because you realize you are not under attack. That validation is intoxicating, but more importantly, it is deeply healing in a world full of noise, criticism, and constant evaluation. Finding someone who meets your vulnerability with quiet acceptance is like finding an oasis in the middle of a desert. Furthermore, creating emotional safety requires a profound degree of emotional intelligence and self-regulation. A truly lovely woman understands that she cannot be a safe harbor for others if her own internal waters are constantly raging with unmanaged drama. She has done the internal work to process her own insecurities, which means she doesn't project her fears, anxieties, or past traumas onto the people around her. She doesn't use your vulnerabilities as ammunition during a disagreement. And she doesn't make your bad day about her own ego. When conflict arises, the conflict is an inevitable part of any genuine relationship. She approaches it with a spirit of collaboration rather than combat. She attacks the problem, not the person. She creates a container of trust where difficult conversations can happen without the fear of emotional abandonment. This is why physical beauty can never compete with emotional safety. Looks can attract a crowd, but they cannot build a home. You can admire a stunning view from a distance, but you cannot live inside it when a storm hits. People will always migrate toward the warmth. They will always seek out the individuals who make them feel accepted, valued, and protected from the harsh elements of the world. When a woman possesses this remarkable quality, she transforms the entire atmosphere around her. She becomes a safe space where people can drop their weapons, reveal their authentic selves, and find the courage to grow. In doing so, she achieves a level of deep, lasting captivation that no amount of cosmetic perfection could ever replicate, proving that the most unforgettable thing a person can leave behind is not a visual memory, but the profound, lingering feeling of being completely safe in their presence. There is an invisible energy that precedes a person long before they ever speak a single word. It is an aura of self-worth, a quiet frequency that communicates to everyone in the room how this individual expects to be treated. We live in a society that constantly profits off of our insecurities. From the moment we are old enough to consume media, we are bombarded with subtle and overt messages telling us that we are somehow incomplete. We are told that we need external validation, a certain status, a specific aesthetic, or the constant applause of others to be worthy of love and respect. We are conditioned to look outward for our value, turning our self-esteem into a floating variable that fluctuates depending on the opinions of people who barely know us. Against this backdrop of endless performance and people-pleasing, unshakable self-respect stands out as a radical, magnetic force. A truly lovely woman does not outsource her self-worth to the crowd. She does not look to social media likes, fleeting compliments, or the approval of others to anchor her identity. Instead, she carries an internal compass that is deeply calibrated. She knows who she is, she knows what she brings to the table, and most importantly, she knows what she will and will not tolerate. This deep-rooted self-respect is not arrogant, loud, or defensive. True arrogance is often a mask for deep insecurity, a desperate overcompensation for a fragile ego. In contrast, unshakable self-respect is quiet, grounded, and entirely at peace with itself. It doesn't need to shout because it has nothing to prove. Consider how we navigate relationships when we lack this internal foundation. When a person does not truly respect themselves, every interaction becomes a potential threat. They constantly bend over backwards to accommodate everyone else, swallowing their own needs, silencing their opinions, and tolerating unacceptable behavior simply because they are terrified of being rejected or abandoned. They become trapped in a relentless cycle of people pleasing, wearing themselves thin to keep the peace, believing that if they just give enough, they will finally earn the love they crave. But relationships built on self-abandonment are inherently fragile. When you show the world that you are willing to accept mistreatment, disrespect, or conditional affection, the world takes notes. People will treat you the way you teach them to treat you, and the most powerful lesson you can ever teach is through your own boundaries. A lovely woman understands this fundamental truth. She recognizes that boundaries are not walls built to keep people out, but rather instructions on how to love her properly. She honors her own time, her energy, and her emotional well-being with fierce grace. If something compromises her core values or drains her spirit, she has the courage to walk away without needing to make a scene or wage a war. She doesn't need to tear other people down to elevate herself, nor does she shrink, dim her light, or make herself smaller to keep insecure people comfortable. She allows herself to take up space unapologetically. When she walks into a room, she is not auditioning for anyone's approval. She is simply showing up as her authentic self, secure in the knowledge that her worth is non-negotiable. This kind of self-respect changes the entire dynamic of how people interact with her. There is an inherent gravity to someone who cannot be bought, manipulated, or easily swayed by peer pressure. When you meet a woman who deeply respects herself, you instantly feel a shift in your own posture. You realize that you cannot play games with her, you cannot disrespect her boundaries, and you cannot offer her half-hearted efforts. She elevates the standard of the entire room simply by refusing to lower her own. This does not mean she is cold or unapproachable. In fact, the opposite is true. Because she is not constantly fighting internal battles for validation, she has an abundance of genuine warmth, kindness, and generosity to share with others. Her cup is already full, so she can pour into the lives of the people around her from a place of genuine wholeness rather than an empty desire for reciprocity. Ultimately, unshakable self-respect is the bedrock upon which every other admirable quality is built. You cannot have radical authenticity if you are too afraid of what people will think to show your true colors. You cannot stand resilient in the face of chaos if your internal foundation crumbles the moment someone disapproves of you. When a woman anchors her identity in her own self-worth, she becomes completely immune to the superficial turbulence of the world. She becomes a lighthouse rather than a weather vane, standing firm, radiating a quiet, magnetic strength that commands respect, inspires admiration, and proves that the most powerful thing a person can possess is an unshakable allegiance to their own value. We live in an era that worships the loudest voice in the room. Everywhere we look, culture tells us that our primary objective in any social setting is to command attention, to be the most captivating character, and to ensure that everyone else recognizes how fascinating, successful, or knowledgeable we are. We spend an enormous amount of mental energy preparing what we are going to say next, crafting our narratives, and engineering our image so that we appear impressive. We treat conversations like stages where we must perform rather than spaces where we can connect. But if you observe the people who truly leave a lasting, magnetic impression, the individuals who make you feel deeply seen and valued, you realize they are playing an entirely different game. They have mastered the art of being deeply, genuinely interested in the world rather than obsessed with being interesting. A truly lovely woman embodies this shift with effortless grace. When she enters a conversation, her first instinct is not to broadcast her own achievements or steer the spotlight back onto herself. Her internal radar is tuned outward, driven by a relentless childlike wonder about the human experience. She asks real, searching questions because she genuinely believes that every single person she crosses paths with holds a piece of the puzzle that she hasn't yet discovered. Whether she is talking to a corporate executive, a barista, an elderly neighbor, or a stranger on a train, she approaches them with the exact same level of authentic fascination. She does not look at people through the lens of what they can do for her or how they can elevate her status. She looks at them as unique universes waiting to be explored. This kind of genuine curiosity completely strips away arrogance, and that is precisely why it is so profoundly attractive. Arrogance is loud, defensive, and brittle because it is built on the fear of not knowing enough or not being enough. Curiosity, on the other hand, is completely secure. It is rooted in the humble and liberating acknowledgement that you do not know everything and that every single human being you meet has something valuable to teach you. When a woman possesses this trait, judgment naturally melts away. You cannot simultaneously judge someone and be truly curious about them. The moment you decide to become fascinated by another person's perspective, their struggles, their passions, and their worldview, your internal stance shifts from adversarial to collaborative. You stop evaluating them and start understanding them. Consider how rare and refreshing this is in modern relationships. Most of us are starved for someone who will listen to us without trying to fix us, top our story, or judge our choices. When a lovely woman leans forward during a conversation, locking her eyes with yours and asking a follow-up question that proves she was hanging on your every word, she is giving you a rare gift. She is telling you that your voice matters, that your thoughts are worth exploring, and that you are seen. There is no hidden agenda. There is no manipulation. There is simply a pure, unadulterated desire to connect with the human being sitting across from her. This creates an immediate psychological bridge, dissolving the awkward walls of small talk and diving straight into the deep waters of authentic human connection. Furthermore, this insatiable curiosity transforms the way a woman navigates the inevitable conflicts and disagreements of life. Instead of shutting down opposing viewpoints or getting defensive when someone challenges her beliefs, a genuinely curious person gets intellectually excited. She wants to know why the other person thinks that way. She wants to understand the experiences, the values, and the background that shape their perspective. This doesn't mean she lacks core convictions. Rather, her convictions are strong enough to withstand exploration. She doesn't feel threatened by differing opinions because she doesn't tie her ego to being right about everything. For her, a disagreement is not a battle to be won, but an opportunity to expand her horizon and learn something new about the intricate tapestry of human life. This outward-facing wonder also prevents life from ever becoming dull. A woman who is deeply curious never runs out of things to care about. She is constantly reading, exploring, questioning, and absorbing the world around her. She finds fascination in the ordinary, noticing the subtle details of nature, the nuances of human behavior, and the hidden stories embedded in everyday moments. Because she is endlessly interested in learning, she brings a vibrant, refreshing energy to every space she occupies. She doesn't rely on external entertainment to keep her engaged because her own mind is actively engaged with reality. Ultimately, choosing curiosity over the compulsion to be interesting is one of the most powerful choices a person can make. It disarms our defenses, bridges our differences, and turns every ordinary interaction into a meaningful exchange. People may eventually forget the witty things you said or the polished image you projected, but they will never forget how you made them feel when you looked them in the eye, leaned in close, and made them feel like the most fascinating person in the world. By choosing to be interested rather than interesting, a lovely woman proves that true charisma is not about shining the light on yourself, but about using your light to illuminate the beauty and value in everyone else. Life has an uncanny way of refusing to follow the neat little blueprints we draw up for it. We can plan, prepare, and organize down to the finest detail, mapping out our careers, our relationships, and our personal goals with absolute precision. And yet, reality will still find a way to throw a curveball. Think plans fall apart. Trust is broken, doors are closed in our faces, and unexpected crises arrive with zero warning, testing the very foundation of who we are. When the storm hits, human nature tends to default to one of two responses. We either panic and crumble under the weight of the pressure, letting bitterness and frustration take root in our hearts, or we put on rigid, brittle armor, lashing out at the world and vowing never to be vulnerable again. Both reactions come from the same place, a desperate, futile desire to control an inherently uncontrollable universe. Against this backdrop of human fragility and resistance, true grace looks entirely different. A truly lovely woman does not possess a life untouched by chaos or exempt from suffering. Rather, she possesses a completely different relationship with adversity. When the winds of difficulty blow fierce and hard, she does not snap like a dry twig. Instead, she bends like bamboo in a storm. She understands a fundamental law of nature. Resilience is not about standing completely rigid against the forces of change, but about developing the inner flexibility to absorb the impact, bend deep toward the ground without breaking, and rise right back up when the gale finally passes. There is an inspiring, quiet strength in watching someone navigate a devastating season of life with their warmth, their dignity, and their core character entirely intact. Consider the energy that a resilient person brings into a crisis. When everything around them is falling apart, when other people are panicking, pointing fingers, or paralyzed by fear, a genuinely lovely woman becomes an anchor. This does not mean she suppresses her emotions or pretends that everything is fine when it is not. Radical resilience is not toxic positivity or the denial of pain. She feels the grief, she acknowledges the difficulty, and she allows herself to process the heavy moments with honesty. But she refuses to unpack and live in despair. She looks at the wreckage not as a permanent destination, but as raw material for rebuilding. She asks the hard questions, makes the necessary adjustments, and takes one deliberate step forward, even when the path ahead is shrouded in fog. This capacity to weather storms with grace completely transforms her relationships and her leadership. People naturally gravitate toward those who remain steady when the ground starts shaking. When you are standing next to a woman who has stared adversity in the face and refused to let it steal her compassion or soar her spirit, you feel a profound sense of reassurance. Her resilience acts as a silent transmission of courage to everyone else in the room. She communicates without having to give a grand speech that whatever is broken can be fixed. Whatever has been lost can be rebuilt, and whatever pain is being felt right now will not have the final say. She proves that character is not forged in times of comfort, ease, and smooth sailing, but is instead revealed in the furnace of trials. Furthermore, resilience shapes the way a lovely woman handles personal setbacks and failures. She does not view a mistake as a reflection of her inherent worth or a permanent indictment of her potential. To her, failure is simply data. It is feedback from the universe telling her that an approach needs to be refined, a boundary needs to be adjusted, or a new direction needs to be explored. Because her self-respect and her identity are not tethered to perfection, she can afford to fall flat on her face, dust herself off, and try again with a smile. She doesn't waste precious emotional energy on self-pity or endless regret. Every single scar she carries becomes a testament to her survival, transforming into a badge of quiet honor rather than an open wound. This deep-seated endurance also protects from the bitterness that so often creeps into human hearts over time. It is tragically easy to let the disappointments of life make us cynical, cold, and guarded. We see people close their hearts off to the world because they got hurt once, choosing a life of lonely self-protection over the risk of loving and living fully. A resilient, lovely woman refuses that path. She allows life to break her open, not break her down. She uses every hardship to deepen her empathy, knowing firsthand what it feels like to struggle, to hurt, and to fight for a way forward. That empathy makes her infinitely more understanding, patient, and gentle with the flaws of others. Ultimately, watching a woman move through life with this kind of unyielding, graceful grit is one of the most captivating experiences in the world. It reminds us of the profound depth of the human spirit. Beauty can catch the eye and charm can win a room for an evening, but it is the quiet, unbreakable resilience in the face of chaos that earns the deep, enduring respect of everyone who crosses her path. She stands tall not because life has been easy on her, but because she has learned how to turn every storm into wind beneath her wings, proving that the most powerful form of strength is the kind that refuses to let go of its own humanity, no matter how dark the night gets. We live in a culture saturated with filters, curated personas, and relentless performance. From the moment we wake up and scroll through our digital feeds, we are bombarded with carefully edited highlights of other people's lives, perfection packaged for public consumption, and unachievable standards of how we are supposed to look, speak, act, and feel. We are trained to wear masks. We learn early on that certain parts of who we are, our quirks, our unconventional passions, our raw emotional struggles, and our unpolished edges, might not be accepted by the crowd. And so, piece by piece, we start to hide them. We construct a safe, palatable version of ourselves designed to blend in, to avoid criticism, and to secure the fleeting approval of people who do not even truly know us. We spend so much energy maintaining this elaborate performance that we eventually lose touch with who we actually are beneath the costume. Against this exhausting backdrop of pretense and artificiality, radical authenticity stands out like a blinding flash of light in a dark room. A truly lovely woman completely rejects the exhausting game of performance. She refuses to spend her precious time on earth trying to contort herself into a shape that fits someone else's narrow expectations. This is not about being rebellious for the sake of being disruptive, nor is it an excuse to be careless with the feelings of others. Rather, radical authenticity is a deep, unyielding commitment to truth. It is the courageous recognition that the only sustainable way to move through life is as your unedited, unmasked self. She owns her eccentricities. She speaks her genuine thoughts without running them through a corporate PR filter, and she wears her vulnerabilities out in the open, refusing to apologize for taking up space exactly as she is. Consider the profound psychological relief that washes over a room when someone finally drops their armor. Most of us are walking around with high levels of social anxiety because we are terrified that someone will pull back the curtain and discover we are not as flawless as we pretend to be. We are constantly bracing ourselves for exposure. But when you encounter a woman who is radically authentic, that entire dynamic instantly shifts. Because she is not trying to hide her flaws or pretend she has everything figured out. She gives everyone else around her permission to exhale too. Her transparency acts as an invitation. When she openly admits to her mistakes, shares her genuine passions with unbridled enthusiasm, or laughs at her own awkward moments without a hint of shame, she shatters the illusion of perfection. She communicates a powerful, silent message to every single person in her presence. You do not have to fake it here. This absolute transparency transforms the quality of her relationships. Superficial people are drawn to superficial performances, but authentic people build deep, unshakable bonds. A lovely woman does not want relationships based on a fictional character. She craves real soul-level connection, and she knows that real connection is entirely impossible without truth. If someone dislikes her for who she actually is, she does not panic, change her tune, or compromise her values to win them over. She accepts it as a natural filtering mechanism. She understands that trying to force yourself to fit into a space where you do not belong is a form of self-betrayal. By showing up consistently as her true self, she ensures that the people who stay in her life are the ones who love her for the real human being she is, not the illusion she projects. Furthermore, radical authenticity gives her an incredible reservoir of personal power and freedom. Think about how much mental bandwidth is wasted every single day by people trying to keep track of the lies they have told, the images they have manufactured, and the expectations they have set. When you are constantly performing, you are essentially a prisoner to your own audience. You live in chronic fear of being found out, but when you choose authenticity, that prison door swings wide open. You no longer have to worry about maintaining a facade or remembering which version of yourself you showed to which person. Your energy is completely reclaimed and redirected toward things that actually matter, creating, loving, growing, and serving others. That kind of freedom is deeply magnetic because people can instinctively sense when someone is comfortable in their own skin. There is also a profound beauty in the way an authentic woman handles her flaws. She does not pretend she is immune to doubt, fear, or frustration. When she has a hard day, she does not slap on a toxic, forced smile and pretend everything is sunshine. She allows herself to be human. But crucially, She does not use her authenticity as a weapon to hurt others or excuse bad behavior. Being real does not mean lacking self-control or kindness. Instead, her honesty is tempered with deep empathy and self-awareness. She knows her shadow sides, she takes responsibility for her growth, and she is honest about her journey toward becoming a better human being. This makes her incredibly relatable, approachable, and trustworthy. Ultimately, choosing to live a life of radical authenticity is one of the bravest things a person can do in a world that profits off our insecurities. It requires trading the cheap, temporary comfort of conformity for the rich, enduring reward of self-ownership. A lovely woman proves that true captivation has nothing to do with hiding your imperfections behind a flawless filter or playing a part in a social script. Her magnetism comes entirely from the rare, courageous choice to stand before the world completely unmasked, completely unedited, and completely alive, showing everyone else that the most powerful thing you can ever offer humanity is the unvarnished truth of who you are. As we look across the